gratification of the material kind. Our selfishness goes away, but this frightens some. And as a collective, we have some growing up to do. So in this expanded state of consciousness, which we talked about a week or two ago around using the spiritual practice of mindfulness, of meditation, to open our hearts and mind to that expanded cosmic consciousness so that we can receive that insight, that aha, and then consciously intend for the good of all. We're in a crucial time in our society right now where we can choose to grow up or to go back. And it's up to each of us individually. The other thing I want to talk about is I think it's interesting when we look at this idea of not wanting to look at the condition or to name racism specifically. I find it interesting that I don't see that we do that with many other ills of society, right? I mean, if you think about it, there's so many marches and rallies and energy put behind raising awareness for such things as cancer and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease and Lou Gehrig's disease, and you know, all of this is wonderful because it's the intention to bring awareness to these issues, to then therefore allocate resources and research to bring about the change we want. And this is the same thing with other movements, with the Me Too movement, with the LGBT movement. There is a willingness to place attention on and rally and march and protest and do all the things to get the attention needed in order to get resources and support. So why is supporting Black Lives Matter perceived differently by some folks? Black Lives Matter, which addresses the untreated and often unacknowledged cancer in our society known as racism. Mm-hmm. And we saw it this week with Starbucks. Sorry, Heather, I have to talk about it. I know you love your Starbucks.
It's okay.
So, Starbucks, yes, just breathe. Tell it, all right. So Starbucks this week put out a thing to their employees that they were not allowed to wear Black Lives Matters apparel or accessories. And although this was quickly reversed from all the backlash, I think it's very telling because the same company for years has encouraged during the same month of June that we're in right now for people to wear pride flair. Mm-hmm. So again, why is highlighting the queer liberation movement different from highlighting Black Lives Matters? And I invite you to look at beyond just a decision that was made by a corporation such as Starbucks, but to point to the underlying bigger issue, not to take Starbucks off the hook, because you can choose what you put your money towards and just know there is an impact. But the underlying thing that this shows is the insidious ways that racism, systematic racism, shows up in our society. Right. That, you know, this movement is seen somehow as controversial or political or something, but yet, you know, pride is okay. So just look at and notice where those little subtleties may be in your own mind. I believe we have to be willing to call a thing without the superstitious or the spiritual superstition that I often hear that, oh, if we say it, if we talk about it, it's gonna expand and we're gonna get more of it and we don't want more negative. I know, it's a superstition because racism exists and it exists within me. It exists within me because of the society I live in and the skin I live in. Right. And I take that as an opportunity to be a part of the shift and not just to feel bad or ashamed for being white. I mean, that may be a place to move through. Those feelings may come up, and I'm not saying don't be with your feelings, just don't get stuck there. Mm-hmm. Allow the feelings, the sadness, the shame, the guilt that may come up, especially if you're looking at some of this stuff for the first time, and to allow those feelings to move through you, but don't get stuck there. Actually move into action to do something to disrupt the system of internalized racism, to disrupt the system and dismantle whiteness in our society. Pay attention and be willing to be a part of the change.